Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have something a little bit different for you today. I'll be sharing with you my first design team project for Wild Whisper Designs. They are a Canadian based company and all these products I'm showing you right now are by them. So if you want to check out any of these products, I'll have a link down below in the description bar so you can check them out. So I'll be featuring their Rooted Love collection today. I have all of their 12 by 12 papers and I'll also be using some few items from their Focus on You collection. So I'm showing you all the papers from the Rooted Love collection. They're absolutely gorgeous, all coordinating beautifully. And they're all based around love, but they also have this nature vibe that I really enjoy. This wood grain is absolutely beautiful. And I really like this geometric diamond pattern as well. So as you see, you get a lot of papers, and they are very high quality papers. And I can't recommend them enough. They're absolutely beautiful. So I'll have a link down below in case you want to purchase them. Today I'll be using this paper mainly. I plan on scrapbooking this photo of me and my boyfriend at a nature center this previous spring. And I'm going to be using this paper from their collection that says, "Let's root for each other and watch each other grow," which is perfect because, you know, love. And I plan on doing some mixed media on this layout later. And right now I'm just playing around with a few things, my doilies, some embellishments, but I definitely know that I want to do some stitching on this layout. So in a moment you'll see some really fast-paced stitching, but first I'm going to get everything ready. I'm going to be using a template from Amy Tangerine and her paper piercer. And I'll just be using some teal embroidery thread that matches the paper beautifully. So I decide on this little arrow motif to stitch. And first I have to cut off the branding strip, which I will use later on this layout, so be sure to save those because they have cute patterns on them. But I'm just going to paper pierce all of these little dots here, and then I'm going to stitch rapidly. So once everything is paper pierced, I'm going to stitch them all with my needle. And a quick tip for threading your needle with embroidery thread is that I put 2 strands of thread, regular sewing thread, through, so there's a little loop on the end. And then I put my embroidery floss through that loop and then pull the 2 ends through the needle so the embroidery floss is all the way through the needle. And that's the way I always thread my embroidery needles, or my regular needles with my embroidery thread, because it's just a lot easier since the ends tend to fray. So you're just going to follow all the little stitch marks that you have, and once that's done, I cut the ends and I will use some washi tape that's on my desk to hold down the thread ends on the back. So I'm just using some of this bright pink washi tape. And now I'm going to move on to my scrapbook layout again. So I want to layer my photo. I have to write down the date first so I don't forget. I'm going to be using this geometric white and beige background. So that's going to be one of my layers. I'm also going to use the brown paper with the branches on it to add some contrast. Once I find that paper. There are just so many great patterns to choose from. It's kind of hard sometimes when you get a new collection to pick out which ones you want to use first. But I do want some dimension on this layout, so I do decide that in between the paper layers I am going to put some fun foam to add a little bit of dimension between them and add more interest to the layout. So I'm going to be using this paper again later on the layout. I'll be using it for some stamped images, which you'll see in a little bit. So I'm going to attach all of this together before I forget what I want. And with fun foam, I always find that I need to use liquid and adhesive tape, just to make sure it definitely sticks. So I'll be doing that to both sides, and I want this doily in between them to add a little more, not necessarily texture, but a little bit more layer, so it looks more combined and cohesive. But before I glue anything down to my actual paper, I need to do some mixed media stenciling. So I'm going to take some of my white modeling paste from Liquitex and put that through this Echo Park stencil, which has a bunch of hearts, which is perfect for Valentine's Day or for any love layouts that you want to do, which is what this collection is meant for. So again, really perfect. So I'm going to try to estimate where I'm going to put my next cluster, but I was very poorly in estimating that, and I only used one of the hearts in this cluster, so I'll set this aside to dry afterwards, and then I have to clean up, of course. I always use baby wipes. Once everything's cleaned up and dried, I can start working on my stamped pieces. So again, this stamp set is from the Focus on You collection, but again, everything coordinates really well amongst all of the collections, but be sure to check out everything in their shop because it's only there until it's sold out. So I'm going to be using quite a few. I know I definitely want to use the feather, but I'll also use a couple more of their stamps later, also on this twig background here. I'm using Black Stays on ink to make sure I get a great dark black impression, and I'm going to be cutting out 2 of these feathers. I used the outline of the feather, not the filled in of the feather, because I wanted the paper to shine through as well. So these will be little elements on my page. These will go to the left of the photo to add, to bring out more of the nature tones from this trip. Because we are at a nature center, I wanted to bring in that natural vibe as well as having the love aspect there as well. So I'm just quickly fussy cutting those out. And once that is done, I'm going to set aside my stamps, I believe, for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back to them. So I'm just going to do a lot of my layering now. So I just want to figure out where I want everything to go before I get a little too crazy here. So the feathers, again, like I said, are going to the left of the photo. And now I'm figuring out what I want to do with this branding strip. So I use one section of it underneath my photo, and then the next section will be in the top left. Since the title takes up most of the right-hand side of the paper, I decided that I need to balance it on the left-hand side, in the upper left specifically because of the photos in the bottom left. So to get a little trifecta there, I'll have the bottom left, top left, and the whole right side of the page basically. So to balance all that out, I have the 3 to create the visual triangle. Now I'm just gluing everything down with my Scotch Quick Dry and my ATG gun, and just figuring out where everything approximately will go actually on the page so that I can glue that down. So my little stenciling pieces stick out a little bit, and then I can glue down my doily that's sticking out and put my branding strip on. And I'll also be creating the cluster in the top left with some stamped images later. So now I'm just trying to decide what else I want on the page. I know I definitely want some more elements, but I also want more dimension. So I decided to put some foam adhesive underneath the second feather. And I have to peel all those little guys off, which were a pain, but it's okay. And that'll rest partially on top of the photo and partially on the bottom layer of the layout. So now I'm going to start the top left cluster by starting with that branding strip, of course. And currently I'm looking through what other pattern papers I want to use. I know I want to stamp more, or I want some punches or something to use on this layout because I need something for that top left cluster. And what I believe I end up deciding is to use my, I use a paper punch actually, and it's a scallop circle paper punch. But first I'm going to go through all of my wood veneer to see which ones I want to use. Now during this trip that we took to the Nature Center, we saw a lot of birds, so I figured I would use those bird wood veneers from Studio Calico as like a little motif to that experience that we had. So now I'm using my Fisker scallop punch like I mentioned earlier, and I'll be using half of that at the top left and half of it in my photo cluster. But I know I want to use another stamped image, so I decide to use the camera. And I'll be stamping that again on the brown twig paper that I had out earlier in my Stays on ink. And since they're new stamps and I did not prep them like I should have, it does take me a few tries, but if you prep your stamps properly with either Versamark ink or the hand method, you'll have great impressions. I'm also going to be using my stamping pad here just to be sure I get a great impression, because there's a lot of details in these stamps. And then I'm going to fussy cut that camera out. I really like this camera stamp because it actually says Wilds in small letters on it, and that's a really cute detail that they added. So now I'm just going to create my cluster in the top left with half the scallop punch that I just used and my camera piece. And I also want to put another wood veneer up there to add more texture and dimension. And the camera will also go on some foam adhesive to bring that that elevated element up to the top left. So I'll get that glued down. And then, like I said, that other half of that scallop circle will be going next to my photo cluster. And I'm just going to stamp the date on it before I forgot what the date was for it. And I'm using this roller date stamp. I believe this one's from Recollections. It's like, it has a bunch of phrases with it, but I don't like to use those, and I don't have a single regular date stamp. It's just they always have phrases with them, so I just don't ink up that section. So now I'm coming back to the wood veneers that I had out earlier just to finish off the woodsy feel that I had on this layout. So I'm just going to glue all of those down. The birds and the hearts are from Studio Calico. And lastly, to finish up this layout, I will be using the Wild Whisper sequin mix, especially designed from Spiegelmom Scraps. So you can check out all of their sequin mixes on their website, which again will be linked down below. This one happens to be my favorite so far, and it has some beautiful blues and browns and they actually have little itty-bitty flowers in there as well. I'll be using the blues and browns on this layout, just to add a little bit of sparkle, but that pretty much finishes up this layout, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to check out Wild Whisper Designs for more information and for more layout ideas. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye, guys.